And it's Tuesday, and I'm back. So, today's exam studying, I said I was going to get to the fun stuff related to recall. So, that's what I want to talk about today, the fun stuff related to recall, which is actually my favorite way to learn things. So, we've said that to properly remember stuff, which is a really important thing for exams, which are probably coming up if you're a college student right now, even if your professors are going to be lenient on it, you still need some information, is that you need to be able to pull the things from the bits of your memory, mostly the bits that are in the way back of your memory, to the front part of your memory, so you can then use them on the thing that you're doing. And so recall methods like trying to use flashcards to remember stuff is a useful one for that. But there are other ways to help sort of jazz up those memory systems and make them work better. And I've gotten pretty good at using those because, let's be real, I get real bored of boring recall methods very quickly because I'm ADHD and I don't do boring. So that means that I've had to learn a lot of real fun stuff. So let me talk about a couple of the fun things that I have done over the years and some of the ones that you could do. We'll start with easy stuff. Mnemonic devices, which mnemonic stands for memory. It definitely starts with MN. If you're trying to search it on Google, Google will give you the rest of the spelling. I think it's MNE. Then I don't know. Okay. So most people are actually already familiar with mnemonic devices because typically the idea is that you turn something that is long or complex or a list or a grouping into something that's easy to remember. So PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, is your standard example. Most of us know that. Most of us still know that, even though we don't solve equations anymore. And I never really understood why that kind of equation solving ends up being super important. Anyway, it's just conventional concepts. I don't even use that. I'm a scientist. But anyway, I still remember it. And I remember that it stands for parentheses and exponents and multiplication and division and addition and subtraction. See that? I am good. Other ones you might have learned. HOME stands for the Great Lakes. Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. See, I can still do that. In biology, we have a couple that are favorites. We're always trying to remember the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And a lot of times we have King Philip, who came over. And depending on what grade level you're in, it depends on which one of these you get. So maybe King Philip came over for great spaghetti or for something like that. I like King Philip came over for great sex because that is the easiest way to remember it. And man, when you think of King Philip having sex, you don't forget that soon. By the way, that's actually a thing that makes mnemonic devices work really well. It's not just that they're cute and memorable. Cute and memorable works, but the kind of crazier, nuttier, sillier, and dirtier they get, the better they stick in your brains. So I'll be honest, I do not remember. I never had to learn all of the cranial nerves, and so I didn't have to go through the process of remembering all of them. But I do remember once one of my friends who was in nursing explained to me that the mnemonic they used started out with to touch and feel. And let me tell you, I will always remember that. And I don't even know what the rest of it is. I don't even know what all those words stand for, although I know some of them because I know two of the O's are olfactory and optic. I don't know what the next one is. And I know of to touch. I'm pretty sure one of them is trigeminal. But since I never had to learn them, I didn't know the rest of it. But if I ever do, I have an automatic starting point. So I kind of like that. It's pretty easy to come up with these. So all you have to do is figure out essentially the starting letters or whatever is going to give you a hint to what you're doing. Try to put them in some kind of order and then try to remember them. So I actually have put this out as my class for things that I find people have difficulty remembering to come up with their own. And so I've always done it for inflammation. So inflammation has 4 symptoms: redness, heat, pain, and swelling. And I'm always like, you got to remember this because I'm going to ask it like 16 more times in class. And I do. And this past summer, one of my students finally came up with a really good mnemonic for that, which is that those 4 things are HPS, or Rocky Horror Picture Show. And so now even I'll never forget that. It's my new favorite. So I'll just do the time warp when I need to remember inflammation. I also remember things. So this is the next step of mnemonics, is then also putting a physical action to them. If you can put a physical action to something, it helps you remember it. In biology, I learned mitosis a long, long time ago as the cell, the chromosomes, and that's in prophase, and then they come together in metaphase, they come apart in anaphase, and they make 2 new cells in telophase. And I still do that. I don't even remember when I learned that, but it had to be like high school. And I'm well past high school, let me tell you. So the fact that I still kind of do those hand motions is something. And I never bother if my students are doing that on a test. I just know they're doing the right thing. So being able to connect those dots is super useful. Being able to do it with an image is great. So if you can sort of picture something and make the pieces of it the thing that you're looking for, so kind of walk your way down a figure that you know, or an image, or somewhere on the body, that sometimes helps. So if you can think of things that relate to, so for instance, one of the things I can relate, that's in one of my videos, is the vertebrae of the spine are split into 3 major sections. You've got the cervical at the top, the thoracic in the middle, the lumbar in the back, and there are 7 of them, 12 of them, and 5 of them in that order in those segments, because it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I was able to back relate the locations to the time of day and the up and down. And so I remember that. I don't need that information, but I remember it. Putting things in rhyming is another great way to mnemonicize something. So if you can make a cute haiku or a cute poem out of it, your chances are you will remember it. Putting things in song is another great way to do it. If you put something in song, you'll remember it for like freaking ever. I can sing more words to you than things I actually know in life. That has always been one of my key things if I'm trying to remember shit. Make songs out of it, because that's the best way. I can still get halfway through the States of the Union in alphabetical order because a song I learned in 4th grade. Yeah, I think high school was a long time ago. But I can be like, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, and keep going all the way through about the middle of the M's, and then it falls apart. That's still pretty good, to be real. Also, if I ever needed to take a history class again, which I don't because I have a terminal degree and I'm never taking another class again, I would definitely take like somewhat modern US history, because I have all the words to We Didn't Start the Fire memorized, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. So I actually know a lot of stuff from songs. So if you can make a song out of something, do it. If you can find a parody song to something, do it. It's my next favorite. And then next after that is turn something into a game. Because if you play a game, you interact with it in a different way and you pull things out of your brain in a different way. By the way, the key here is that you're engaging a lot of different senses and you're relating things to things you know. Both of those are key concepts. So I always kind of joke that we don't remember the major names of people in history, but we can pretty much tell you every character in Clue. What does that tell me? That tells me we should have turned Clue into a history game. Or if you do something similar to that, you'll remember more details about it. So those are my fun exam suggestions. So try to get as many of those into your head as you can, and as many triggers as you can for what they're going to be, because that's the best way to sort of jam information. It also helps that you're chunking when you do that. So you don't need all of your working memory to remember all of one thing if you can keep it in a chunk. So if I can remember Rocky Horror Picture Show, I don't have to constantly spend working memory going redness, heat, pain, swelling. I've got it right there. And if you can write down the mnemonic at the beginning of the test, then you also don't have to waste brain energy on it. You can just look at it every time and keep things moving and keep your working memory open for what you need it for, which is to bounce things back and forth. All right, so that's my fancy study skill. All right. My COVID/scientific literacy part of today is that I'm going to go to an article a friend posted on Facebook, and I'm going to try to figure out its scientific legitimacy, essentially, as I talk. And so it says coronavirus and the fallacy of the false dilemma. And so I clicked it. Now, let's talk about, first of all, the first thing that you do when you look at something. You want to know where it's from. This is from the American Council on Science and Health. That sounds awesome. It's even a .org, ACSH.org, which means technically it's a nonprofit, which is not useful. You and I both know that nonprofit does not mean non-biased, and that the right or wrong people could be involved in it. So actually, before I even read the article, I kind of want to do a quick checkup on what I think of this organization. So I pull up their About page. They say that they're a pro-science consumer advocacy organization. So that could be good, but let me tell you, I know enough scientists to know that there's problems with scientists. Create to be scientific alternatives to news that is often more hyped than other things. We help policymakers see past scaremongers and activist groups who have targeted GMOs, vaccines, conventional agriculture, nuclear power, natural gas, and chemicals while peddling health scares and fad diets. Okay, so far, these guys are mostly in what I would call my range, as in it's clear that they are for GMOs and vaccines and some other stuff. And I wouldn't target any of those things because, they go back and forth. I do think some of them are definitely things we need to, consider. I don't think there's a problem with conventional agriculture, but I also don't think it's the best possible thing. So, but that's so far so good. Scan, let's see, their history doesn't give me when they started. But it gives a little bit of information about their chemophobia, which I definitely a problem I have, let me tell you. I'm a big health and fitness nerd. When I hang out with the diet people who are like, well, I just don't eat anything with, chemicals in the label. I'm like, shall I explain the chemistry of food to you? No, I'm not gonna. So far these people are mostly in my range. I'm not gonna lie, but I need to make sure of that. So, I'm not interested in their donations. I want to know who's on their team. So they do have a list of people. A number of them have PhDs and MDs after their names. Those are always, people I like, but I would want to look the individuals up at some point and get a sense of them. It is a pretty long list. Nobody I specifically recognize, which is probably equivalently good and bad, because if I don't recognize names, I know to avoid, but I also don't recognize people I know. So, hey, and they're from all over the country. Okay. They have available financial statements, which I like, because that means you could actually look their shit up and, they have an understanding of this. Let's see what other articles they have, just again, so I know where I'm coming from. Food and nutrition. Let's see. All right, so here's one where I can find something useful out. Toxicology, is organic food safer to eat? And it scans through. It talks about genetic modifications. Is organic food safer? It's got a bunch of different stuff. Says other issues might be important. It seems to actually be a quickly, somewhat balanced article. Okay. So from a sourcing perspective, this organization does not seem to clearly fall in one direction or another. I like that. Let's read the actual article and see what I think. So it is written by Alex Barazow, PhD, who is a PhD microbiologist, science writer, and public speaker who specializes in the debunking of junk science. Okay. That sounds like my kind of thing. He has done mostly science writing. So it's a little hard to tell if he's got a research background, but that's just fine. Oh shit, he goes by the same thing I do, which is Dr. B. I think that's cute. He's got a book called Science Left Behind: Feel-Good Fallacies and the Rise of the Anti-Scientific Left. Yeah, no, he's probably pretty much in my range, because I have some of those same issues where it's like we're real good, but we ignore our own science sometimes. Okay, so he starts this article by talking about what our species is capable of, both goods and bads, and then talks about the fallacy of the false dilemma. So far, this is not an overly fact-based article, but I think he comes out and makes that kind of clear. And he says what makes the debate. So essentially, there's a false dilemma. Open the economy now or stay on lockdown until a vaccine comes out. And honestly, I agree. I think that is also a false dilemma, and I see multiple options. So far, we're on the same page. Let's see why, because why is important. And he says those who favor an indefinite lockdown claim to have science on their side. And I have to say, I have seen a little bit of the same thing where we're a little bit like, no, this is so dangerous. And I'm like, it's not all as dangerous as we think. So that seems reasonable. Let's see. He says that without a doubt, smart public policy is not simply doing what scientists say. He says why? Because there's other considerations, legal, ethical, and financial, that scientists do not routinely take. So that's true. Scientists are looking for very specific things in a very specific manner, and although they can certainly provide a lot of useful information, I don't think scientists should be the only ones involved in every decision. So that is important, but you should have scientists, you shouldn't ignore them. And he says the same thing. And he So those who favor an infinite lockdown claim we shouldn't sacrifice lives for the economy. And he notes that a society with a damaged economy will harm public health, and we do sacrifice lives for our economy every day. Now, I think we sacrifice more than we need to daily. Like, I'm not a fan of the number of lives capitalism sacrifices to get by. But also, I do recognize that we take, as human beings, calculated risks every day to do the things we do and go the places we go. And that I do think calculated risks are important. And it's true that essentially not being able to have people have money is also bad for health and people will die. So we're definitely in the same place. But then it also says that those who want to fully open up the economy right now are also spouting nonsense, as there's no way to have achieved herd immunity and there would be disease hotspots and things like that. Again, I completely agree with this. If you are in a spot that is almost at max capacity, oh no, you should not be opening things back up, because an inherent part of the numerical problem here is that COVID seems to have a pretty low death rate if we can get people in hospitals and treat them effectively. I don't think we want to know the death rate if we can't. And that's an inherent issue. So we didn't actually reach. New York City managed to slow things down enough and treat people well enough that we're pretty sure we did not lose people due to, for example, in Italy, where they literally couldn't treat people, although we might be losing people who are not getting treated for other things because of that. But man, it is hard to tell. So those are difficult things. But that is a key thing in the way that this works. So I actually agree with that too, and agree that it's not a choice. So then I think this article takes kind of an interesting turn, because he's making the point that things need to be nuanced. Areas are going to deal with things differently. And I agree with that. I live in a central suburban area of New York that has not been hit as hard, although our numbers have been increasing. So I think we're on an up peak and we need to stay where we're at and then move forward. But that's important. His second half of this article, which I think is interesting, says most people can't be properly educated. I'm kind of amused by this, and came to the conclusion that most people can't be educated for two reasons. There's people who don't want to be, that they want to be lied to, and they don't want their beliefs challenged. I will agree with that. There are many, many psychological theories out there that essentially say if you think this thing, then that's the thing. And it is hard, because scientists are always changing. I get in trouble for this. I think one thing and then I learn a bunch of stuff and I go, no, I'm going to change my mind on that. And it's like, wait, but you said, and it's like, no, but I learned something new. But it's hard for the brain to do that if you're not in a field where that happens all the time. And even in our fields where it happens, sometimes it's still hard to get people to do it. So they don't want to. And second, for the people who are open-minded, fewer are capable of understanding highly complex arguments. That's true. It's the number of factors that are involved in a discussion or a decision like this are super numerous. So I'm pretty well versed in the science of this. I'm not as well versed in the economy. So I would need an economy person to communicate with and explain these things to me, and then I would need to learn them. And I pick up information fast. Most people don't. So he's right. You're just not going to pick up everything all the time. Now, okay. He says that no matter how long he sits in lecture hall, he's never going to walk away with a decent grasp of quantum mechanics. His brain isn't built for it. Okay. This I disagree with. I think actually almost any human can learn almost anything, but it's a matter of timing, method, and other complications. I can't learn it that quickly, and I can't learn it from a lecture. I can't learn anything from a lecture. ADHD brain didn't go there. But I could probably learn quantum mechanics, and I've picked up some basics over the years as I've kind of taught it to children from other things. But I'm not going to suddenly become an economy expert in the next week. I could, but man, I got other things to do and I don't want to. So this ends up being a problem because it says that many Americans think they're smarter than everybody else, including experts. And part of and this is an inherent problem, is that since we can't all be experts at everything, we do need to figure out who is an expert in things by examining their backgrounds and then have conversations with them and then accept a level of their expertise. Unfortunately, a portion of this country has been taught that expertise is just trying to fool you, and we don't have a very good critical sense of this. So actually, I think this is a great article that talks about the critical sense of these different things. Not gonna lie, this is pretty good. And he notes, as many millennials discovered, it is a lie to teach kids that they can be whatever they want to be. That's absolutely true. There's tons of external factors and stuff. We do better as a society if we taught from a young age that some people are smarter than you and should be listened to, or at least very growth mindset. One of these days I'm going to read the Carol Dweck book. That some people are currently more educated in an area because they have put in so much more time that you cannot put in that time, and should listen to the things that they say. Not that you couldn't become an expert, but you're probably 10,000 hours short of being an expert, or at least 9,990 hours short of being an expert, which means you should listen to those people. So I agree with this. And it says, until then, we have a culture dominated by people who spend 5 minutes on Google and believe themselves to be among the world's leading experts in constitutional law and infectious disease epidemiology. So from a check this article out perspective, yeah, I'm in with this guy. Is that we are probably in a false dichotomy situation. Nothing is standard. Everything can happen in different ways. We should be listening to people in all places. And I'm beginning to see how some of this is going to work, that we are going to do some slow openings, that we're going to do it carefully, that we're going to watch what happens. And that flattening the curve, like there's the curve, did not mean that we were going to be able to save everybody. But it did mean that we were going to make sure everybody who needed to get a hospital bed could. And to do that, we are going to need to start moving, adjusting, spreading, and keep pushing in that direction. And that's really key. And then maybe also destroy the capitalist system that keeps people from being in the hospitals and makes them go bankrupt and all that stuff. But that is definitely another topic for another day. From a scientific perspective, there wasn't a lot of science in this, but I do think it's a pretty well-balanced and interesting article. And I would like to have lunch with this guy. I think we'd be buddies. We're both Dr. B's. We both like microbiology. All right, that is my commentary for today.